NPR covered this Kyoto secrecy on the radio. Here's the transcript where they spoke with Akihiro Saito, a professor at Asia University in Tokyo. Anthony Kuhn says, Nintendo got its start in 1889, making Japanese Hanafuda playing cards. Their roots as a toy maker means their games focus less on cutting-edge hardware and more on gameplay and fun. But on another level, opening a museum is out of character for Nintendo. The company seldom explains itself, preferring instead to let its products speak for themselves. Nintendo did not allow any of its employees to speak on tape about the museum. Akihiro Saito, a professor at Asia University in Tokyo, says Nintendo's silence partly reflects the culture of Kyoto, Japan's cultural and former imperial capital. Saito says, through an interpreter, the nobility of Kyoto thought that only educated people could understand their culture. It was not something that just anyone could grasp. Kuhn says. He says Nintendo's tight lips are shared by Kyoto's master craftsmen, who focus on making things, not explaining them. Japanese business and technology reporter Osamu Inoue notes that, still headquartered in ageless Kyoto rather than bustling Tokyo, Nintendo maintains a corporate culture that discourages executives from speaking to media outside of press conferences and trade shows. Unlike its peer, Toyota, the NES's originator has never felt obliged to impart its ways to rivals, domestic and foreign. Reggie, Fils-Aimé, is an American businessman best known for being the president and chief operating officer of Nintendo of America, the North American branch of Nintendo, from 2006 to 2019. Prior to his promotion to president and COO, Reggie was executive vice president of sales and marketing. Reggie later authored a book titled Disrupting the Game, From the Bronx to the Top of Nintendo, released in April 2022. Concerning his first visit to Kyoto, Reggie writes about being shown the Nintendo DS prototype and discussing what they were going to say about it at E3. He writes, Don and I were the lone non-Japanese in the room. Information was shared in alternating translation from Japanese to English. Any comments we made in English would then be translated into Japanese. This made for long meetings, and it was a process that I would get used to over time. We were discussing the system's touch screen at length and how this would enable new forms of gameplay. Touch screens were not yet a mainstay in consumer electronics, as this was well before the iPhone. Only personal digital assistants utilized touch screens at this time, and these were high-priced products and not mainstream. As the new senior executive responsible for sales and marketing in the largest subsidiary at Nintendo, I was expected to make comments even though I was new to the business. I jumped right in. The touch screen is a major differentiation for us, I began, even as I peripherally saw a staff member open the door to let a newcomer into our closed-door meeting. We will need to feature this in our consumer communication. What games make best use of the touchscreens? The team went on to describe a new experience in the Metroid series and a new Mario game. But the developers were most excited about a game they were developing where you would use the touchscreen and the built-in microphone to interact with a virtual dog. We need to fully leverage the touchscreen. We need to make this a key message at E3 and paint a vision for the new experiences that Nintendo developers will be able to create, I said. Once this was translated into Japanese, the man who had arrived stepped more fully into the circle that had formed around the Nintendo DS prototype. It was Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of legendary franchises Mario, Donkey Kong, Zelda, and so many others. He had been the late arriver and had been present for my questions and comments about the touchscreen. My knees began to shake a little. He is right, said Mr. Miyamoto in Japanese. The touchscreen needs to be a major focus for us, and we need to work hard on the experiences we plan to showcase at E3 and demonstrate how we will create brand new games for consumers using all the capabilities of our new system. After this was translated, he continued, "By the way, who are you?" This was my introduction to Mr. Miyamoto. It was also the beginning of my indoctrination into the concept of Kyoto craftsmanship. Internally, this described the precision and detail of everything within Nintendo. The craftsmanship of the developers is plain to see as Nintendo games dominate any list of top-rated games in history. But this also reflects the attention to detail in every aspect of Nintendo's business. Nintendo's spiritual connection to craft can be traced back to before the Meiji period, when Kyoto was the imperial capital of Japan. Even when the capital moved to Tokyo around 1868, the emperor and senior lords of Japan would travel back to Kyoto for fine linen, glassware, sake, and other goods. The uniqueness, unparalleled quality, and pride of the Kyoto creators is renowned. Nintendo is also a Chinese. Chinese firms prioritize continuity over growth. Their goal is not to maximize stock price this year, but to ensure the company still exists 100 years from now. This disconnect is why Nintendo stock often drops even after good news, or why they stubbornly refuse to follow trends like VR or 4K until they are ready to do it their way. They're operating on a timeline of generations, not quarters. And this is documented by Japan House, Los Angeles. Randy Nichols is a department chair and professor at University of Washington, Tacoma. He holds a PhD in Communication and Society from the University of Oregon, and his stated research focus is the political economy of the video game industry, how companies, markets, policy, labor, and power shape games. In his book, Nintendo, Playing with Power, published by Routledge in 2024, he writes, "Although the failure of the Virtual Boy and the loss of market share were severe, Nintendo was far from out of the game. In fact, from 1982 to at least 1996, Nintendo required no outside funding, loans from banks, owing to decisions about maintaining cash reserves and its tight controls over production and distribution. The company also eschewed traditional Japanese corporate networks, called keiretsu, in which groups of companies were linked together through cross-investment or other interplay of capital. While that allowed Nintendo significant independence, it also meant it had smaller margin of error and would have to engineer its own recovery." So, I'm not arguing that Kyoto culture and toy culture are the only reasons for Nintendo's secrecy. There are clearly important and foundational reasons, but there are others. We'll look at some more evidence for their secrecy in the next video.